Love the Lord your God, and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn, and thy wine, and thy oil. Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God. For he hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. The early rain was given at Pentecost, and it was an amazing demonstration of power and divine love. And it enabled the early church to take this message and deliver it to the known world in just a single generation. Many Christians of today expect this latter rain to cleanse them of their sins and get them ready and prepared to take this gospel to the rest of the world today. And it will, just not in the way that most Christians are expecting. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. So this latter rain is poured out unto the humble learner that wants to know the real truth. This latter rain is in fact the new light, the light from the testimony of Jesus Christ. In order for the remnant to take this last message of mercy out into the world, more truth is needed. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, knows this. Therefore, we must expose all of the doctrines and traditions of men, all of the dogmas, the superstitions, all of the religions and traditions, all of the ignorant ways of man must be exposed and restored under the latter rain and be shown for exactly what they are, so that people can then come to the truth of Jesus Christ. That is the purpose of this latter rain that is now being poured out upon the remnant. And this remnant is identified also in Scripture.
And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off.
In Isaiah chapter 22 verse 12, it says, "And in that day our Father of hosts is called for weeping and mourning, for baldness and the girding of sackcloth." And if we go to Jeremiah chapter 6 verse 26, it says, "O daughter of my people, dress in sackcloth and roll about in ashes. Make mourning for as an only son, most bitter in lamentation, for the plunderer will suddenly come upon us." So what is a witness? A witness is a person who's seen something, knows something, and is able to give evidence about it. In Deuteronomy chapter 17 verse 6, it states, "Whoever is deserving of death shall be put to death on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. He shall not be put to death on the testimony of 1 witness." And if we go to Deuteronomy chapter 19 verse 15, it says, "One witness shall not rise against a man concerning any iniquity or any sin that he commits. However, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses the matter shall be established." This is a clear principle found in the Torah that the testimony of only 1 witness is not enough to convict a person of a capital crime. It takes a minimum of 2 witnesses to convict someone for any kind of sin or any iniquity that happens. Now we can find this again in the New Testament if we go to Matthew chapter 18 verse 16. "But if he will not hear, take with you 1 or 2 more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established." We also find this again in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1, where it says, "This will be the third time I am coming to you. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established." If you go to Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 through 12, it states, "But now thus saith our Father, who created you, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine. You are my witnesses, declares our Father, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he." It goes on to say in verse 12, "I have revealed and saved and proclaimed it. I, and not some foreign god among you. You are my witnesses, declares our Father, that I am he." Also in Isaiah chapter 44, verses 1 through 8, it says, "Hear now, O Jacob my servant, Israel whom I have chosen. Thus saith our Father who made you, who formed you in the womb and will help you. Do not fear, O Jacob my servant, Jeshurun whom I have chosen. For I pour water on the thirsty land, and streams on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your descendants, and my blessing on your offspring." It goes on to say in verse 8, "Do not fear or be afraid. Have I not told you from old and declared it? You are my witnesses." We can see a double meaning in this passage here in Isaiah chapter 44. He's talking not only about the 2 witnesses, but also about the former and latter rain. These passages from Isaiah plainly state that Israel will witness to the fact that there is no other God like our Father. This testimony will be very necessary during the reign of the Antichrist, when he sets himself up and proclaims himself to be God, as it's written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. If you go back and you study the Old Testament, you see that Israel split into 2 parts after the reign of King Solomon. Now this split was recorded in 1 Kings chapter 12 and 2 Chronicles chapter 10. The division basically resulted in the southern kingdom becoming Judea, or the house of Judah, and the northern kingdom of Samaria, which was the house of Israel in the Holy Land. So the house of Judah was comprised of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. Later on, the tribe of Levi joined with the house of Judah. This is recorded in 1 Kings chapter 12 and 2 Chronicles chapter 11. The 10 tribes which comprised of the house of Israel were the tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, and Dan. These 10 northern tribes were led by the tribe of Ephraim, and this was given by the blessing of the firstborn by the patriarch Israel on his deathbed. You can find that in Genesis chapter 48, verses 14 through 22. So we can see from the scriptures that Israel did indeed become 2 separate entities. This is very important because this gives scriptural evidence that yes, there are in fact 2 different trees or 2 different groups that are still part of our Father's blessing. Now that we know that the 2 witnesses are in fact 2 groups of people, the olive tree of the Jewish and the olive tree of the Gentile, we're going to look a little bit further and find out about the sanctification of the servants of our Father in the end times. So the prophet Joel speaks of this in Joel chapter 2 verse 28. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. It also says in verse 32, And it shall come to pass that whoever calls upon the name of our Father shall be saved. Here is another mystery. About 2,000 years ago, Yeshua dispatched 72 disciples, 2 by 2, on their mission to prepare for the first harvest by preaching the gospel of the kingdom. At the end of days, there will be 72,000 from each tree, totaling 144,000, that will also be sent out 2 by 2 to once again preach the final message before the end of days. In Luke chapter 10, verse 1, it says, After this Yeshua appointed 72 others and sent them ahead of him, 2 by 2, into every town and place where he himself was about to go. And he said to them, The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to our Father of the harvest to send out more laborers to his harvest. The 72 disciples were given power over the demons in the days of Yeshua's ministry. In like manner, the 144,000 will also have such authority over serpents and scorpions, the demon horde that will be released from the abyss in Revelation chapter 9. So what exactly are these two witnesses going to be doing during the 1260 days of their testimony? We are given two different glimpses into their future. This is based on events that occurred during the ministry of Yeshua. If you go to Luke chapter 9, verse 1, it says, Then he called his 12 disciples together, and he gave them power and authority over all demons, and to cure diseases. He sent them to preach the kingdom of our Father, and to heal the sick. And then he said to them, Take nothing for your journey, neither staffs, nor bag, nor bread, nor money, and do not have more than one tunic apiece. Whatever house you enter, stay there, and from there depart. And whoever will not receive you, when you go out of the city, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them, and continue on. So the commission for the 12 disciples to go out and preach the kingdom of our Father to the lost sheep of Israel was the first of its type. This was the antitype, rather, of sending out the 144,000 at the end of the age. Yeshua's instructions and warnings regarding what the disciples were to expect during their mission is found in Matthew's parallel account of this event. So we read in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, Behold, I send you out as sheep amidst the wolves. Therefore be as wise as serpents, and as harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deceive you up to councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak, for it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it is not you that speaks, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you. Now brother will deliver brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated for my name's sake, but he who endures until the end shall be saved. When they persecute you in this city, flee to another. For assuredly I say to you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Therefore do not fear them, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and nothing hidden that will not be known. These two witnesses, these two olive trees, the 144,000, which are comprised of 12,000 of each of the 12 tribes of Israel, will be sent out once again to preach the last message of salvation before the end comes. And from their testimony will be a harvest of a great multitude which no man can number, of all nations and tribes and kindreds and people and tongues. If you go to Revelation chapter 7 verse 9, this is the group, the harvest, that the 144,000 will bring in at the end of days. It has been revealed to me through Yeshua that right now The 144,000 are being chosen amongst men. Once the witnesses have been sealed, then the next stage will start. And when it is time, the witnesses will start to speak.